Tracy Schmidt, Unstoppable Tracy. How are you?
I'm very happy to be here. Thank you, Jackie Denise.
Thank you. I want people to understand the many sides of Tracy. You are a decorated athlete in a male-dominated World Cup sailing, an award-winning international speaker. You've shared the stage with Jane Fonda, John Travolta, Mark Wahlberg, and many, many others. You are a best-selling author. And by the way, folks, she is the only four-way amputee that has climbed the Himalayas of Nepal. Fantastic.
Oh, thank you, Jackie. You certainly have done your homework.
Thank you. So I have to ask for many of our listeners, tell us how this all started with you. Let's start from the beginning.
So you shared that I was born a four-way amputee, and I was born in the 70s. And, the first day of school, I was so excited. And my mom and I are face to face with a principal. And I feel like that was the moment of truth where this all started. And he looked at me and he said to my mom, "I'm sorry, Tracy can't go to this school." Yeah.
Oh,
And like my little 5-year-old heart just went in my stomach. Thank you for your reaction. And I know your listeners are like, "What?"
you're
And
stuck.
yeah. And already I can feel your passion. Like, I want to talk to that principal.
Yes, of
You
course.
wouldn't be surprised if my mom was like all mama bear, right? Like, what do you mean? And she wasn't. My mom, she had the kindest eyes. And she looked at that principal with a big smile and open arms. And she wasn't mama bear. And she just said, "How come?"
Oh,
Yeah. And I feel like that was where it all started. Forevermore, whenever there's a roadblock, it's kind of like in a space of kindness, "How come?"
right.
And he explained, Tracy's missing her hands, and there's one teacher. How's she going to tie her shoelaces? And we're only one teacher. And in the 70s, children with disabilities went to segregated schools. And so there wasn't resources. There was no educational assistant, teacher aide. So he wasn't mean. He just didn't have the support. And so mom was listening and she said, "Oh, like I make it. I understand. Right? 30 kids and one teacher and Tracy without her. Do you think since we're here today," and she counter offered, "can we just try? And I'll spend the week looking for a school more suited for Tracy." So we walked around to the side of the school where the kindergarten kids are. There's hundreds and hundreds of kids in the schoolyard. And my mom's face went happy smiling to like super serious. And she fell to her knees.
Oh, goodness.
And I'm 5 years old. And I'm like, what is my mom? Like, it's in front of everybody. Is she okay? And she grabs me, the parent grip, the 5 fingers on both arms. She's holding my arms and she looks me eye to eye and she says, holding my arms, "Tracy, it's really important that you and everybody's included. Nobody left behind."
Oh,
Right? Like so incredible.
it is incredible.
And I'm a crazy 5-year-old and I don't know why she's so intense. And so I break free of this super
Right.
moment. I run into the playground because I just want to play. I'm 5. And I bump into the principal. The principal had followed my mom and I around and he saw her on her knees and he heard her say, "Nobody left behind." And so I kind of like to say that his heart grew 3 sizes that day. Kind of like the Grinch, right?
That's right.
And so fast forward to recess time,
Yeah.
because now the principal wants me to stay,
Of course he does. As he should have. Absolutely.
right? And I wasn't outside.
I hear you tell the story from the beginning, and I'm just telling you, it's heartbreaking in a way. It was heartbreaking, but it's also inspirational.
Yeah. Like up and down, right? So
Exactly.
he runs inside to ask my teacher, how come Tracy wasn't outside? right? Because that means I can't stay at that school. I've got to go to a segregated school because I wasn't independent to get outside. And my teacher said, he says, couldn't she tie her shoelaces? And
Oh,
my teacher says, Tracy was the first one to tie her shoelaces. It's like, what? I love your face. Like, of course she was. You're so fun. So great.
oh,
Like, well, then why wasn't she outside? I said, oh, her little friend couldn't tie her shoelaces. And what did my mom say? Nobody left behind.
behind.
So I helped my little friend tie her shoelace. All the other children saw me. None of the 30 kids could tie their shoelaces. And they all lined up for me to tie their shoelace.
Oh, wow.
By the time I tied 30 shoelaces,
Oh.
pieces fell and had gone off.
Oh gosh, Tracy, this story is just, it's fascinating.
It gets deeper and deeper. Isn't it wacky?
It is, yes.
How come a girl with no hands is the only one required to be able to tie their shoelace? And it was a gift, right? It was a gift. I rallied 30 little allies
Yeah.
forevermore that day. My admin assistant now is one of those 30 allies, right? Natasha.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're kidding.
Mhm.
Oh.
So there's so many positive things that influence, like, where did it all start? I learned, how do I generate conversation? By asking how come. How do I generate conversation and know when people don't know? The principal just didn't know. I ask how come in a space of kindness, right? Like, it's easy to
Oh,
be defensive and we would understand it. It's justifiable. But there were so many nuggets that day.
but it's and true, things happen for a reason. That was a blessing. And with your mother, and I have to say, how did that, with you're always asking why, how come, how has that influenced you today with everything that you have done? Because
Just,
you are a change maker. You really, really are.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that greatly. And I'm not sure if that's where we met, maybe the Women of Inspiration Changemaker
Yeah,
Award that day,
we did.
which was incredible. And so, they said, no, you can't ski. They said, no, you can't sail. They said, no, you can't climb Himalayas. They said, no, you can't work in Air Canada. Like, no, you can't. Okay, you were able to go to the elementary school, but now at high school, there's more stairs. Like today, I went to Tim Hortons and I ordered my Tim Hortons extra large steeped tea. And international speaker, right? Award winning. It's my professionalism. I have a master's in business. I'm driving a 2024 new car. So if you want to talk about first impressions at a window, I think I present eloquent enough to buy myself a cup of tea. Right? We're not talking over the top here. And I drive up to the second window and I reach out, missing my left arm and missing my right hand to get the cup of tea today, 2024. And the Tim Hortons lady says, oh, no. Like,
20, you're right. 2024.
yeah,
I'm shocked that this is the reaction and this is still happening.
right. It's, and I do give a lot of credibility to the isolation of COVID. And people being able to be out and about, and people's fears are increased and people are in a more vulnerable space. And when we are feeling vulnerable and raw because of job loss or because of illness of someone we love, or because of a way a community is responding to us in different ways, and things that are happening, and so many working from home and doing the hybrid model, so less interactions, that this is what's happening. We've gone backwards in time.
Yeah.
I feel like we're in the 70s again with the way people are responding to me. But I tell you, the second she said, oh no, like even when I'm telling you,
Yeah.
I have a lump in my throat, right? And I'm a World Cup sailor. I climbed the Himalayas. I busted Uber into Canada, one of the people. I supported Air Canada with pilot strikes and mergers with Canadian Airline. And 2 words, oh no.
Set you back.
Yeah.
So what did you say to her?
So, well, where I went in my head, right? Like it doesn't mean we don't sometimes go there. I went there, but in my head, so my mom just passed away this month, and it's hard for me to say powerfully. I apologize. It still brings tears to my eyes.
Understand.
And I heard my mom in my head. She just doesn't know, right? The principal didn't know, right? And the whole how come, like, how come? Oh, I said, how come in my head? And I said, she just doesn't know. And so then I reset. She just doesn't know. And even that, like we lose a loved one, like I've recently lost a loved one. And so that influenced probably my interaction with this lady. It wasn't just that she underestimated me, but it was that I'm in a vulnerable month, right? So we're all more vulnerable. So she just doesn't know. I said, oh, I can do it. And I put it, it's okay. And she was like doubting. And I'm like, I could do it. If you just hand me the cup, I'll show you. And she handed me the cup, and I held the cup with my 1-digit finger and my left elbow above arm, for those of you just listening. And I held the cup, and she was amazed. And I said, thank you. And I drove away, and she doesn't even know that I'm a master scuba diver with over 100 dives, right? She doesn't know I can fly airplanes and jump out of airplanes. She doesn't know I ride horseback or World Cup sailor, decorated athlete, right? She's just amazed I can hold a cup. And so, like, how did that influence me today with your question was that I get to remember in business and in my athleticism and my adventures, in my purchasing of Tim Hortons tea, right? That we have vulnerable moments. So you just saw me have one, and that we get to remember, right? We get to re-anchor what we focus on. Happiness is that we can bring it back.
Yeah. And we can overcome. Sometimes it does take baby steps, but we can overcome every obstacle in our way. It's
Yes.
the power of perseverance as well.
Yes. Yes. And perseverance, like one of my big light bulbs, and people know this expression, but that courage isn't without fear, right? Perseverance isn't without pain, right? It's in spite of. You remain resilient. You remain like, they don't know. You remain, I can do this. Even we get to exceed uncertainty. Feeling uncertain is okay. I get to be sad about my mom. I get to have a moment of, like, today was the lady saying, oh no, at Tim Hortons. Yesterday, I was meeting my sister at Distillery District because my incredible nephew was in a play at Canadian Stage Theatre. And so I'm in a wheelchair that I'm using temporarily because my knee is injured. And a homeless person with mental wellness starts screaming really loudly, you're crippled. You can't do anything. You're crippled. You can't do anything. And he's not well. He's not well. And he's obviously doesn't have the filter between what you're thinking and what you're saying. The only thing is that he has a wellness concern that says what he's thinking, but how many other people think what he's thinking? And so I get to reset every day, and I get to be on global TV a few weeks ago for,
You?
did you see that? Yeah. It was showing like New York Times Square, like on top of the NASDAQ, for being this international association of top professionals. And so I believe, I'm constantly proving to myself that I'm not who people see.
Exactly.
Many of your listeners must feel that too, with or without legs and arms, right? I bet you feel that too, right? You are a powerhouse, Jackie.
I do. And sometimes I find myself getting in my head, like we talked about earlier, and people do that. But for me, you're right. It's resetting. Things do happen, of course, and being a visible minority as well. I encounter that all the time, but I reset, and it's a matter of educating people as well.
They just don't know.
Exactly.
Right? The no, when the principal said no, N-O, he just didn't know. K-N-O-W. And that when we hear no, when we hear underestimation, we imagine not N-O, we imagine K-N-O-W.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Education is key. I got to tell you that story, it really resonated with me. It really did, honestly.
Me too.
And
And
your
hopefully
mother,
your listeners.
yeah, and your mother, God bless her, especially from the 70s. It's tough to see your child in pain, but when you are ready to take on the world to make a difference, uh, God bless her.
Yes. So I have this crazy hairstyle for those that end up visiting potentially, but I've
Yes.
got like a bouffant 70s picture because it's inspiring my mom and my mom's strength so
Oh,
that I get to be powerful with Jackie Denise today on this incredible happiness show. And that's what she'd want. I could hear her in my ears when I'm tearing up and she'd be like, come on, Trace, get on with it. I could, with her British, she was from Liverpool. She partied with the Beatles in the Liverpudlian basement before they were famous.
oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. She lived on just a few blocks away. Right. Yeah.
She sounded like a wonderful woman, Tracy.
Yes.
Just
Oh,
wonderful.
she had a hard life, right? She was born in a war right after the war. And then she had a daughter with a disability, which doesn't sound like when you think they didn't have ultrasounds and they didn't know. My dad also died very early. So she was very much bringing up me and my sister. And she loved him. She was very lucky that it was definitely a love match.
Yeah.
So, just like there was war, there was strength that was born out of that. And she had a daughter with a disability, but then she got to find who she really was and make a difference to so many. And so we don't have to turn these moments around. We get to, and
Right.
we choose, and we get to feel uncertain, but we get to exceed uncertainty. Feeling uncertain is no excuse for inaction.
That's right. Oh, Tracy, I'm hearing you speak and I'm so motivated. It's important for everyone. People may think, oh, what difference can I make? I don't have this background. I'm not an influencer. It's the small steps that can make a difference.
Yes. Yes. You get to ask, how come? And you get to say, okay, impossible unless what?
That's right.
Right? And you figure it out.
Exactly. You do figure it out.
Yeah.
Before we leave, I have to ask you another question, but
You get to ask me another question.
that's right. How do you define happiness?
Oh, that's a big question. What came to my brain when you said, how do you define happiness? Was I could hear my mom say, no excuses. I didn't know how your question and mom's no excuses landed. And I think what it is that I have every excuse. No one would judge me, right? For my past month. Yesterday, that man shouting what he shouted, the Tim Hortons lady saying no, my mom passing, right? Like to maybe say, let's record another day, right? In this particular, or to not jump out of an airplane or not climb the Himalayas or to be on disability support pension and not earn my own living. When I live a life of no excuses, and that's some tough love. Like, I don't know what's going on behind your eyes. I don't know what it is for your listeners. Like, what are they facing that's even tougher than what you and I with racism and ableism are facing? Something horrific. With mom's tough love, when I live a life of no excuses, even with realistic reasons, I get to live a life of no limits, no limits. And so what is happiness? Happiness is no excuses, no limits. Bonus, that awareness of no limits.
Yes. And again, Unstoppable Tracy.
And unstoppable you.
Oh, thank you so much. This was a pleasure, as always, speaking to you, honestly. Unstoppable Tracy, you are a powerhouse. Thank you again for coming today. And now for yet another facet of happiness, I introduce my second guest, Cigi Manning. Cigi Manning, how are you?
I am so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm so happy to have you here. Cigi, you are the Vice President of Transformation and Systems at Bell Canada, which is the largest telecommunications company in the country. You have 17 years of telecommunications experience. You are described as a techie, a transformation strategist, a customer experience advocate, a team and talent builder, an executive sponsor within Bell Canada's Diversity Leadership Council, and you have also played and coached ringette in various organizations at the highest levels in Canada. A lot of accomplishments, Cigi.
It feels like a lot when you put it all together like that, but over a span of time. Yeah, no, it's been a good ride. It's been great.
That's good. Accomplishments all the same. So my first question to you is, given your position within Bell Canada, what do you think distinguishes the better and more innovative organizations from the average? And the same question with respect to leadership.
Okay, so 3 things for me create an innovative organization. And there's really one of those 3 things that distinguish the different ones or the better ones from the rest. And I think the first one is that they're clear about the problems they're trying to solve, but you're very creative and flexible in how you achieve those outcomes. That's just the foundation. So you have to be clear and crystal on what's the customer problem or the focus statement that you're looking for, but give teams flexibility on how they come to the solution. The second is that we incubate with ideas from everywhere. So harnessing the ideas of different perspectives, using constraints to drive creativity, adopting processes to include end user and customer feedback in the design thinking process is really, really important. And I think this one, number 2, builds on number 1, but it's harder. More organizations haven't figured out how to incorporate that feedback into their processes. The third, though, is where actually the rubber hits the road, or where the money is, I guess. And this one is just action. I think it's important for an innovative organization just to take action and be super aggressive with your time to value. Focus on MVPs, get something out there, feel it, touch it, play with it, and then build on it from there. This is more challenging for organizations because it often involves flipping your decision-making processes on top of their head. We've been built on these like decades of top-down leadership practices and
Right.
almost telling our teams the solution, where this alternative way of working really enables the teams that are closest to the work to identify how the problem should be solved, put it out there into practice, and then just keep building on what's working and testing and learning quickly. So if I think of that in the realm of leadership, I think the same thing applies. The thing that separates the best from the average are those who showcase servant leadership, meaning that they're really clear on the goals and objectives, but they really leave the solution building to the people that are closest to the problems, and they give their teams the flexibility and freedom to really innovate and do their best work.
Yes, agreed. And now in the question of gender, what do you think is the hardest thing that comes with being a female vice president in the largest telecommunications carrier company in Canada?
Oof. That question could go in so many directions. The thing for me that was the hardest thing, if I really pull it down to one thing, was really gaining the confidence in my own personal leadership strengths and competencies. They were a very different style from many of my male counterparts whom I had to look up to. What is traditionally a male-dominated executive and C-suite bench.
Right.
My style leans more, and I feel many women would relate with this, but my style leans more heavily on the softer team leadership levers, things like motivation, inspiration, deep trust, collaboration, strong conflict resolution, and communication skills. And I received a lot of feedback early on in my career that I really needed to be more aggressive and more assertive to hold my own in these tough conversations that would be happening and to keep pace with the next level of leadership. But I learned really quickly through implementing or attempting to implement some of these things that the tactics just didn't work for my style. So I adjusted my approach and looked further ahead so I could see conflicts faster. I learned to solve problems outside of the boardroom or quickly develop tactics with people or alignment with people ahead of things becoming a problem. And I just felt like that moment, which kind of was like a light bulb moment for me.
Yeah.
I had a one-on-one conversation actually with one of our very senior leaders, and he reminded me what my strengths actually were, which were communication, collaboration, and conflict resolution, and reminded me that I didn't need to be the same as all those people who gave me that feedback. And it just gave me more confidence. And I think that was a pivotal point for me in my career to take forward. And so I lean on those things.
Yeah, embracing your uniqueness and differences.
That's
Yeah,
it. That's exactly it.
right. And being in the corporate world, I know you've seen this. Why do you think people choke under pressure?
This one's easy for me. I think the first thing you say when choke under pressure, I think of just preparation. Anytime pressure is involved, preparation has to be the other thing that we think about. I immediately think of one of my favorite books, Chris Hadfield's Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth. It's my absolute favorite. And he talks a lot about preparation and putting yourself into scenarios, anticipating situations, thinking about positive outcomes, but also the negative ones, so you can prepare yourself to handle anything that comes your way. So instead of choking under pressure, you're actually learning the skill of breaking problems down and improvising to find ways out of everything. The more you practice the skill, the more experience you can draw on when it really counts. I presume this is really important if you're an astronaut, but it applies to all of us.
Yeah.
And as leaders, I think it's really important to prepare our teams for these scenarios as well, and war game scenario A, B, and C, and develop their confidence in solving problems. But it's also important on the flip side to recognize if we're putting people in harm's way and protecting them from those situations as well, so we can preserve their self-esteem.
Yeah, of course. And you want to make sure that you're setting up people up for success, not failure. And of course, again, being in the corporate world, do you incorporate mindfulness in your leadership style? And if you have, what have been the steps that you've taken?
I would like to think so. I think this is an area that we can always do better, being more mindful in the workplace. And especially now more than ever, I think burnout is at an all-time high. Organizations are going through incredibly rapid change. The key for me is putting people at the center of everything you do and constantly working to create those right conditions for them to succeed. It means that you need to say no to a lot of things to allow them to focus. You need to do small things like being present, focused, open-minded in conversations. You need to encourage your teams to develop the skills and resilience to solve challenges and take actions themselves. But it also touches on more practical things like your daily scheduling, being mindful of child pickup hours during the day, creating space for breaks between meetings, blocking scheduled time to allow uninterrupted work, not just meetings all day back to back.
Yes.
Being organized on agendas, all of that stuff. There's so much here, and it just requires regular thoughtfulness in almost everything we do. So we can create this environment for people to feel valued and heard and supported to do their best work.
Yeah, agree. And you know what, CJ, I have to say, from outward appearances, you seem to have your life together. Was there a time you didn't?
I'm sure there's many times, and thank you for that compliment. We do always follow that public praise, private shame approach, I think, with everything that we share outwardly in terms of the good and the bad. I find in leadership, in addition, we take more caution even in showing our vulnerabilities and uncertainties towards others or sharing that outwardly with other people. And I think that's because there's an expectation on us to lead our teams through these challenging times and create positive optimism for the future. Truthfully, I find it, though, for me, a regular cycle. I go through periods where I feel like I've got everything moving in the way I would like it to, feeling really great about the work we're doing, feeling great about this presentation or this pitch, or just things feel naturally like they're moving really well. And then, something happens. There's a setback. Something didn't go the way that you were picturing or planned. The week feels a little bit off and imposter syndrome does set in. But I think that's what perfectionists or people who are striving to be better than they were yesterday, I think that's what we do is we go through these cycles on taking on new things that are new and hard in your learning. But you just take the setback, reflect, and then you improve. And I think that's what sets us apart of those people who are continuously looking to grow versus those who are staying the same.
Yeah, and I think it's okay to be vulnerable at times as well.
It is. I find that creates a good bond and trust with your teams when you open up a little bit more and let them see that you're human and feel like they have your back and you have their back. It's a really great environment to create for people to show them that there's vulnerabilities everywhere, and that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think women can have it all? Love, career, family? Why or why not?
Absolutely, they can. I mean, I don't think I'm the best to ask because I don't have a family yet myself. However, I do have an incredibly strong female circle of friends who are just crushing it in life. They're crushing their goals. They've got great careers. They are living their best life, raising beautiful families all at the same time.
Yeah.
I definitely did feel the pressure, though, of having to choose between chasing my goals and career aspirations and starting a family. There was this feeling or looming feeling for me that if I chose a family early on, it would be a career setback for me or a potential roadblock in achieving the goals that I had on the timelines that I had for them. Mm-hmm. And interestingly, during the period, I guess, of like my leadership ascent as well, there was an increase of women in senior leadership positions between, say, 2015 to 2023. But in recent stats and articles I've been reading, we're starting to see a decline in women at the director level and below pipeline.
Yeah.
And they're leaving corporations at a higher rate than ever before. And I think that's largely attributed to women's ambitions actually growing, but corporations not keeping the pace with the flexibility required to enable women to flourish.
That's right.
So I think it's really important for women in general that we need to talk more together about how we manage these aspects of our lives.
Yes.
We need to champion or advocate for more flexibility in the workplace where we can. And we need to, more importantly, also champion for other women when they're not in the room or off on mat leave to make sure that we maintain or make space for them at the table to return.
Yeah, agreed. And you talk about, having flexibility and women having other interests. Can you give some indication as to what you're doing within or outside of Bell Canada specific to mentoring or coaching in the service of others?
Sure. It's an interesting question. I was recently told by someone like I should be a coach or I could see coaching in your future. And, I love that aspect of both my work life, my friend life. I think service to others is one of the most important things that we can do. And it's the foundation for all of us to any of our successes. If you ask people how they got to where they are, they never did it on their own. So I think of coaching in three ways, or service maybe in three ways to put differently. The first one is coaching. And I strongly believe in my role as a leader. I think of it similar to a sports coach. And I'm constantly coaching my team on what they did well, what to tweak to be stronger next time. That feedback loop is constant and regular, and it actually goes both ways. They're very active with sharing with me feedback as well. The second thing is mentoring, which I do volunteer a good portion of my time through my week mentoring, but I'm also very intentional about who I spend the time with and how we spend the time. It's a structured approach to mentoring to make sure that we achieve together what we're hoping to get out of the sessions. And I'm really pleased if I can play a small role in anyone's career development. I'm really happy to help that way. The third is sponsorship, which is different than coaching and mentorship. And I definitely can say I would not have achieved my career goals without a strong sponsor, someone who was rooting for me behind closed doors, creating opportunities for me, connecting me to their network. I feel forever indebted to a couple individuals who really did that for me. And I think sponsorship is really important, that we need to look out for those people who we see, that we can jockey for and create those networks and opportunities for.
Yeah, I definitely agree with having a mentor. A mentor certainly cuts the path for people and it helps you to get to your goal to have a mentor.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. And, you're an executive sponsor within the Diversity Leadership Council at Bell Canada.
Mm-hmm.
This question is important to me as well. Why is diversity important?
It's so important. Diversity is so important because it allows us to recognize the uniqueness of individuals first, if we think about what diversity is. But there's a strength in that uniqueness to bring in to creativity, into variety of thought, into different perspectives. It boosts our innovation. It helps us solve problems. It sharpens our understanding of our customers and our diverse customer base, certainly here in Canada. It's just incredibly important. From a business perspective, diversity and inclusion is key to creating an organization that values and respects the differences in others so we can have the right conversations and harness that power into a collective strength. I know that studies have found that organizations who score high on fostering D&I have better employee retention, stronger market share, and higher shareholder return. So I think there's so much here to this questions, and I love it, as you know, of this topic, but it's incredibly important.
Yeah. So what needs to happen to create your best life after saying what you've said? And can you give us some examples?
It's an interesting question to think about. I think if I know the answer to this question, I probably should go and write a book after this. But to create your best life, I think it goes back to reflecting on what it is you want out of life, and which is different for all of us. And what's the most important things to you? I had a moment a few years ago where I did honestly feel a little bit lost. I was leaving my second engagement at the time, and I spent some time reflecting on these thoughts of like, what is it that I want out of life? I went as far as making a list. I wrote it down 100 times probably. I tested out each one over and over and over again. And I made that list, and it's something that I actually reflect on and look back on regularly. It keeps me grounded. I think of it as kind of a vision board of sorts, and it covers everything from health to love to career and family, friendship, balance. I use it as a guide on what I say no to so I can create some more boundaries and space for the things that are important to me. And it also reminds me on my priorities during tough decisions and also what I say yes to. So more girls' weekends, more travel, more quality time with my family, and definitely carving out daily time with my boyfriend over dinner is important, or dog walks, just some downtime for us. So I use it regularly, and I probably should have been doing this sooner, but it's been an important kind of tool for me in my toolbox.
It is for me as well, because I also have a vision board. I have my 3-month, 6-month, 9-month plan, and I look at it every day. I'm completely focused on my vision board. So I'm glad to hear you say that you have one as well.
You bet. They're so fun to make, right?
They are.
Like, there's lots of different ways you can go about it, and they're great to have as a reference point.
They are. So you have played and coached ringette in various organizations at the highest levels in Canada. What is your superpower, Cigi?
My superpower, I'm going to say team development, and specifically pipeline development. I have a good track record with some incredible promotes within the team. And I like to think I'm a very positive person to begin with. I believe there's almost nothing that we can't tackle on our own that we can't tackle even better as a team. And ultimately, when you have a team, it comes down to knowing your team, knowing their strengths, their weaknesses, their goals, their fears, dreams. And the reason we need these things are so important for us to know is so you can help protect and grow them. If you don't know them, it's hard to grow them. And so I had a leader a few years ago, actually many years ago, tell me that my team was so loyal that they would follow me through fire, which is an incredible compliment.
It is.
But it wasn't that helped me see what my strengths were. It was the rest of his sentence that taught me my strengths. And he finished the sentence by saying, but if I asked any of them, I know what they would tell me with certainty, that you would never lead them into one, meaning I'm never going to lead them into fire. And that to me was the key to my superpower, was developing strengths and protecting the self-esteem of those people that I had a privilege to lead every day, and enabling them to actually accomplish more together than they thought possible by themselves or alone. And so I think that's my superpower.
That is an awesome superpower to have. So after saying all of this, Cigi, are you in pursuit of happiness, or have you achieved it?
I had a feeling you might ask a question similar to this. I'm going to say I'm really happy with where I am. And I think in any situation of good fortune, good health, good fitness, being blessed to be raised in a free country with a family that supports you, I just have an incredible female support system, a very loving boyfriend. My team at work feels like family. We have lots of exciting things that we're working on and able to feel proud about. It's really hard to say anything but happiness achieved. So I'm going to say happiness achieved.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Different Facets of Happiness.
It is my pleasure. Thank you for having me.